Hello GQinc Facebook community. Is that time of the week again. We're going live for the How to Succeed series. This series has been put together by GQ in order to enable you guys to live the life that you want to live on your terms, building a meaningful career, or even going out and starting and building your very own business. This week we are joined by an exceptional guest who's a great Australian entrepreneur and a good friend of mine, Mr. Chris Gilbert. Now, Chris has a background in finance, in management consulting. He's come from that corporate world, and in 2014, I believe, Chris?
Yep, 14.
2014, founded Equitise, which is a crowdfunding equity platform revolutionizing the way high growth companies raise money from investors and the way investors invest into high growth companies. These guys are now across Australia, New Zealand, have a very sort of rigorous international expansion strategy. And Equitise, since launching, has raised $22 million for companies throughout Australia and New Zealand, have 15 employees. These guys are a juggernaut. So not only does Chris understand the entrepreneurial landscape, he understands raising money from investors very well, and he also understands the corporate landscape and how to succeed in a corporate career. So we're very glad to have him. Chris,
thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us, mate.
That was a very nice introduction.
We are pumped that you are here.
Important.
You are important. You're very important to us. Now, guys, as always, you guys are setting the agenda. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff I'd like to ask Chris that I'll be doing over the next half an hour. However, if you have any questions for either myself or Chris or both of us, punch them into the comments below. Hugh, our producer, is behind the camera. He feeds them through to my trusty iPad so we can rock and roll through your questions. Chris, talk to us about Equitise, mate. It's a real revolutionary, disruptive technology that's targeting quite an old school space.
Yeah, definitely. So my background, a loud motorcycle outside.
Yeah.
My background is in sort of management consulting and corporate advisory. So I started my career, much like Jane Liu, who I think you interviewed a few weeks ago.
That's right.
At the Big Four accounting firm. So I was in Deloitte and doing sort of long hours working in M&A, venture capital type stuff, but it was in sort of more boring businesses. We, through doing that, me and my business partner, who was at Citigroup at the time, we sort of started to notice a big hole in the market with this big valley of death of funding, as Matt Barry likes to call it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of within that $1 million to $5 million of capital being raised. There's no real method of filling that valley of death in the market. So you got the venture capitalists and the accelerators and the friends and family and fools, the 3 Fs. Which fill the smaller amounts, and then you've got the big corporate advisors which come in at the back end and take the 10 to 100 mil.
Yeah.
But we saw this huge opportunity in crowdfunding and seeing what Kickstarter, AngelList, and what these really cool platforms are doing globally. And huge growth, like massive growth, huge numbers of deals, and just automation of platform churning through deal flow and getting huge investor communities online. So we decided to quit our jobs, get out of the corporate rat race where we're being paid poor salaries and working long hours. Sorry to my old bosses out there. And wanting to take a bit of a leap of faith and do it ourselves and see if we could solve the problem. So we quit our jobs, we put together a business plan, and we applied for a FinTech Accelerator Program, which we got into off the back of a pretty terrible pitch. I don't know why they put money in, but they did. And yeah, we went through this accelerator program, and it was really beneficial for us. Coming from the corporate world, going into startup landscape is quite difficult. Lots of challenges, not being paid, eating 2-minute noodles, the rest of it, racking up credit card debt. So we did that, and thinking we'd have this beautiful platform at the end of 6 months and then being able to launch it to the Australian community. The issue was the laws from ASIC at the time did not enable us to launch the business. So at the end of this 6-month acceleration period, we had a product, but we couldn't actually get a market into the product. So we're pretty hamstrung. We fortunately found some investors with Tankstream Ventures and a couple of others who believed in the story and the vision and backed us to go to New Zealand and get a license there and then lobby government to change the laws, which 2.5 years later, we have lobbied and we have changed the laws, and we're going to be launching in about 3 months in Australia for retail investors, which is really exciting.
Well done, mate. That is not easy.
It's been a struggle, but it's been fun.
Yeah. And, you know, I come from the education space. Obviously, accredited education in Australia is the second most regulated industry in the world, second to airlines. And I know just how difficult it can be to lobby government and influence politicians.
You think you're high on the priority list, but then you see them, talking about completely different things in Parliament, and they promise you they bring it up in the House of Reps, but they just don't. So anyway, we're through it now, and we've got a framework which we can use, which is the most exciting part.
And so the context of this series is selling oneself, selling ideas, selling products. There was two components of that story that I'd like to hone in on, and that I think would be really interesting for the audience. The first one was you got into the Accelerator Program, so there was an element of selling yourselves in that, and then there's also been success in influencing government, which might be the hardest sell on the planet. So let's start with the Accelerator. What do you think it was for those that are watching and thinking maybe one day I want to jump ship, do my own thing, move into an acceleration program or raise a bit of money? What do you think were the key sort of fundamentals that enabled you guys to get chosen?
It was a new Accelerator program, which I think, if anything, made it harder, because it was the first one in Australia which is focusing on fintech. And now fintech's the most overused in the AFR, but 3.5 years ago, no one really knew what hashtag fintech was. So it was quite difficult. There were a lot of people applying, and the founders of the acceleration program had a particular fondness for equity crowdfunding, the Heap brothers, Toby and Ben Heap. So I think Johnny and I, being ex-finance ourselves, sort of struck a chord with the founders. So I think if anyone's applying for an acceleration program, I'd really look into the people who are judging, and look into their backgrounds, look at their CVs, look at where they've worked before, and strike it as a bit of a conversational topic, because it definitely does work. It's networking before you're actually networking. So that really helped us. But I think it was striking the chord with similarities of interest, being finance, but then also, fortunately, they really wanted to have an equity crowdfunding platform come through it. It was us and another one in Brisbane, and I think the one in Brisbane just, I don't know, they didn't have someone called Johnny Wilkinson in their team. Maybe, I don't know.
Love it. And then in terms of the long and I'm assuming somewhat arduous process of influencing government, how did you guys identify, what are the key levers we need to pull here? How do we sell that in to actually enable change?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. For government, funding private enterprise is always on the top of their agenda, and employment. So striking that chord with them was pretty easy.
Yeah.
There was definite interest there and association with crowdfunding. They'd heard about it. They're all educated people. Malcolm Turnbull is in the finance game himself. So they definitely are aware of the space. So that education bit wasn't there. We didn't have to tell them what it was. But we raised 50 grand initially for our business from the Accelerator. We used probably a quarter of that on airfares and accommodation, flying down to Canberra to block politicians in the cafe so we could ask them about crowdfunding.
Is that right?
So I think you just need to be persistent.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like we used a big part of our budget flying down there numerous times.
So you guys would literally rock up Parliament House, sit in the cafe, wait for the politician you wanted to stop them.
Exactly right, yeah. We had to do it.
And it worked. I love that. I love that. That is entrepreneurial.
Wait till I tell you about the youth hostel story in New Zealand.
Tell us about the youth hostel story in New Zealand.
Well, but onto perseverance. We couldn't launch in Australia, so we moved to Auckland, New Zealand. And who wants to move to New Zealand? Apart from going hiking and going apologies to the New Zealand viewers of GQ. Actually, I think this is GQ Australia, isn't it?
We should be safe.
Apart from going skiing in Queenstown. So we moved to Auckland, and I added about 5,000 people on LinkedIn from Auckland. Lawyers, venture capitalists, financial advisors, sent them all the same templated message. and probably got responses from about 500, which turned into about 100 coffee meetings.
Yeah, wow.
And from that funnel, those 100 people who actually wanted to meet up with me really wanted to help me drive my business.
Yeah.
So it's a numbers game. But I guess the funny side of that is while we're sitting all these coffee meetings in Auckland for a year, Johnny and I were living at YHA. And we wanted people to take us seriously, so we'd chuck a suit on every day. We'd be sleeping in these eight-person dorms, and really getting to know the front desk of the YHA, like coming in every day, like, oh, did you close any meetings today? It's like, oh, no, not really. But it was a really fun period of our lives. It was quite stressful, but it was good fun. Well, we've done it hard.
That is a profound story. That's really cool. When was that? 2014, 15?
So we're talking about your unconvention. I think that was 2015.
Yeah.
We moved there beginning of 2015. So yours was about April or May.
Yeah. It might have been March 2015.
Yeah.
Which is where we met.
Yeah.
Mate, that is incredible. I love that. Staying in a youth hostel, putting on the suit every day, going to meet professionals in New Zealand to get the business off the ground. Yeah. The other thing that's I think quite pertinent in that example is there was no real magic bullet, right? Chris has reached out to 5,000 people on LinkedIn that became 500 responses that turned into 100 meetings. Like, that's selling in 2017, utilising the platforms, LinkedIn in this example, that are available to us in order to get belly to belly with the people that might be able to assist.
Yeah, 100%.
Mate, you've got to write a book one day.
I'll get some tips from you.
Yeah. First question's from Jack. He says, to Jack and Chris, if I've worked in corporate environment for some time and want to take the leap to start my own project, should I be looking to invest in my own business acumen? If so, where should I be looking to learn and upskill?
I think everyone's different. For me, I hate online courses and sitting there and learning from books. I read Elon Musk's biography and stuff like that, but for me, it's getting mentors, getting people in the space who can actually get to know you and like you as a person.
Yes.
You learn from them. You learn from their mistakes. You learn from what they've done. You get them to catch up with you and have a coffee. That's kind of what I used to do to thrive, is more getting to know people and how they can potentially help you.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street. You don't just always take, but I was one for not doing a whole lot of reading,
textbook
but getting
stuff
out there and wearing out the shoe leather, as they
100%.
say. So that's kind of what I was about.
Yeah.
But not everyone's the same. It's I can sit in the coffee shop and drink coffee all morning, and then when I start shaking, have peppermint tea in the afternoon to sort of calm me down. But not everyone likes doing that, right? So I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. It's completely about learning from people with been there, done that experience. You can't learn entrepreneurship from a textbook. It's so entrepreneurship and textbooks are sort of opposite ends of the spectrum, right? In my view, and similar to your story, mate. Like, I've connected with some of literally, if you look at Australia's best entrepreneurs under 40 or wealthiest entrepreneurs under 40, I've connected with the top one or two of them through sending them a message on Facebook. Yeah. Right? And it's about approaching the people that you would like to build a relationship with, demonstrate humility, demonstrate respect, and that you understand their background and what they've done. 100%. Keep it brief and go for a coffee, right? That's how relationships start. I think what sort of follows on from that is you need to be an implementer. So if someone comes and catches up with you for a bit of mentoring, want to start a fintech company, go and catch up with Chris. Don't catch up with him again in a month's time, not having taken heed or implemented what he told you to do the first time, right? And a lot of what we've tried to do with the Entourage is, it took me 10 years to build a network. So a lot of what we try and do with the Entourage, bring together Australia's best entrepreneurs and sort of serve them up on a smorgasbord, which is what you would have experienced at the unconvention. So some of the hard work's been done. It was harder to get to find great entrepreneurs or find great sort of accelerator programs, education programs 10 years ago.
Oh, definitely.
When we were sort of starting out.
Entrepreneurship wasn't really even, it's always been a thing, but in the last well, ever since I've been doing technology type stuff, since leaving Deloitte, it's sort of become this huge thing with corporate VCs joining the market, and entrepreneurship is everywhere. I think it's probably used too loosely, but 10 years ago you couldn't really.
There's nothing. There's nothing. It's better these days.
An example of this as well is we're launching a new product 3 or 4 months ago, which is syndication, emulating or copying what AngelList has done with finding an angel investor, then bringing in a deal, and then them sharing that deal with their group of investors to get a group of high quality angels investing in a good startup. We had one of Equitise investments coming up on our platform. It's actually launching tomorrow. It's a little GoPro competitor called Revel. Really, really cool business. Really, really cool business. And it's Y Combinator, Comcast, Equitise, founder of Lance from Google Maps. It's invested. But this was when Snapchat had literally just IPO'd, and Equitise came out as being the first investor in Snapchat. It was in the AFR and all through the press, and no one actually knew who this now billionaire investor was. And because he was an early stage investor in Revel, I sent him a LinkedIn message at the beginning of the year, and he would have been getting so many bloody messages. Thinking, there's probably 1 in 1,000 chance he's going to respond. But I was like, Bill, you've been up to Perth recently. We've got an event coming up. Some of the AngelList guys are coming over for it. If you're in Australia, can I fly out to Sydney? He wasn't in Australia, so he didn't come to Sydney. But he responded, and he's like, Chris, thanks for reaching out to me. But that's the sort of thing you need to do. Like, lots of people would think you wouldn't get a response, but you do get responses. You can reach out to lots of different people and they respond.
This is the thing. It's so powerful. And this is the thing with business, whether you're in a career or whether you're starting and building your own business, is that if you were an actor or a singer, right, and you wanted to reach out to Bono and Khaled and Drake, right, like there's no way that you would be able to access them. But as an entrepreneur, you can reach out to this particular investor, or I can reach out to the top entrepreneurs in Australia, and I have been doing so for the last 10 years successfully, because even if they do have a little bit of a profile, they're still far more approachable and accessible than if you were, dealing with celebrities, for instance. The other interesting thing that I've found, and so this is sort of becoming a conversation about mentorship, right? And so again, whether you're in a career or running your own business, you should be leveraging people with been there, done that experience. The other thing with that is that I've found the more successful somebody has become, the more eager they are to give back to people on the rise.
Definitely.
Because they would have gotten help when they were on the rise, and now there's this sort of desire to pay it forward.
100%. 100%.
It's good.
I mean, unless you're Richard Branson, then you're sort of a celebrity and you're a successful businessman. But look, I think definitely agree. Business leaders are not seen as celebrities. They walk down the street, people don't come and take photos of them and all that sort of stuff. So they're more than happy to help you. In fact, they're probably a bit bored of their job and they want to get back into the early stage stuff. And, if you're lucky, they want to invest as well if they really like you. So
that's the thing, is that particularly those entrepreneurs that have their business or businesses have gotten to a large scale, or they've since become an investor and they're no longer operationally involved. A startup or an early stage or a high growth company comes to them and says, do you want to go for coffee? They're going, hell yeah. Like, I'm interested, and that's the game that I was born to play, and I'm now running this big business. I'd love to have sushi with you.
Exactly.
So mentorship from people who've been there, done that experience, incredibly important. This is a good question from Mike. He says, aside from the obvious, when would you advise someone not to set up a small business? And he sort of goes on to ask, and this is a good question for you, Chris. If I'm in a career, what are the criteria that, in your view, I should think through in order to go? Should I stay the course and wait for the poor salary to become a good salary and run that path, or should I go do my own thing?
I think you can. You touched on this with Jane as well. I was watching bits and pieces of that interview, but I think you can, if you've got the right idea, or I'm all about gut feel. Like, I think when it's the right time to leave. But I was doing various things when I was at Deloitte, most of which failed. But you can do things on the side after hours, and people might notice. They don't care, as long as you're still doing the output. I think when it's the right time to leave. For me, I just had enough of corporate life. I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't me, so I just ripped the Band-Aid off and quit my job. And as soon as I got into this accelerator, call it piggybacking. You don't want to quit and then have nothing to go to, or at least a good business plan which investors want to invest into. So you always piggyback. You don't just leave for nothing. I guess the question was, how do you know it's the right time?
I think
you just know when it's the right time.
You nailed it. You said gut feeling, right? And in my view, I'm a very spiritual person. In my view, I think that particularly when pursuing a non-traditional path like entrepreneurship, people don't check in with their own intuition or their own internal compass enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And then the sort of tactical, practical component of that is, don't quit for nothing.
Yeah.
And your cash flow and your productivity falls off a cliff because you're moving into nothing, right? If you've got an opportunity there, check in with how it feels and what's important to you and make a decision.
And it's probably never the right time, to be honest. You're always going to have, your rent to pay. You're always going to have, potentially a young family. You're going to have, a girlfriend or a partner. It's never going to be the exact right time. You just need to be able to juggle it. It's all about juggling the things which you've got in your life. So I think that's a big point. People try and think for this, sort of sun shining through the clouds moment of it being, all right, that is my time to pounce. But it's like, well, this is never going to happen.
The stars will never align.
Exactly.
Ever.
You need to take a risk, and if you're not willing to take a risk, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, I think.
Absolutely.
But it's calculated risk, it's not stupid risk.
That's right. Really good follow-on question from Mike. He says, was your corporate experience valuable to you as a business owner?
100%. For me, and it's a running joke with people who know me, I'm not really that into attention to detail. No, I've always been, my team at Deloitte will know this as well, but I was always, the analyst that would be booking meetings with, catch of the day, and that's how I met Matt Barry back in the day when I was an analyst at Deloitte, because I was trying to get involved in the freelancer deal before it IPO'd. My bosses thought it was a stupid idea and never take the meeting, but he did take the meeting. So I wasn't the guy that was off building financial models. What I should have been as my job. I was more doing the high level fluffy stuff and sales stuff, which is networking, getting to know people who outside of Deloitte or within Deloitte could further progress my career. And I'm still very good friends with my two first bosses at Deloitte. So the head of the Fast 50, Josh Tanchel, and Damien Sampling, who now runs the Deloitte Venture Capital Fund. They are two of my mentors, and they've always helped me, and I can call them any time of the day and they'll still help me. So I think forming those strong relationships with people you work with is really, really important. But also, even though I say I'm not into attention to detail, I've carried over a lot of skill from using Excel and building models. I just don't like it, but it's certainly helped me. It's helped me a lot.
Yeah. And I think you touched on an important point there. And that is that your reputation and the relationships you formed whilst you're employed at Deloitte have continued not only to enrich your life, but to benefit you as a business owner, right? Because you've kept these people as mentors, which is, if you're thinking about one day starting your business and you're currently employed, give like 100% during work hours to that employment, right? Don't check out. How can you think about becoming a business owner for yourself and trying to build a team yourself and expect people to give 100% to your vision if you're not giving 100% to the business that's currently employing you, right? Yeah. And so there's brand equity, there's reputational equity to develop while you're employed before you jump ship.
100%.
Love it.
Yeah.
Question from Keely. Can you talk about your screening process for choosing startups on Equitise?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I was in Auckland, because we were a new business, we didn't know anyone there, we would literally sit every single meeting that came to us. And we were sitting like 8-10 meetings a day, and it was just getting ridiculous. And unfortunately, most businesses which came to us weren't really applicable for our model. So what we do now, and it's no offense to the companies coming to us, it's purely just a time, and if anything, it's a time thing for both the companies coming to us and also our time, being respectful of both. But we get companies to fill out a survey, which is an onboarding questionnaire in our platform. It's a simple sort of 10, 15 questions, goes into our main criteria in selecting a deal. So we only look at B2C type businesses because consumers end up investing in the businesses, product-based ideally, directors' loans. If there's directors' loans, we convert them to equity. If there's debt, we question the debt and we try and get the debt converted to equity as well. There's lots of different bits and pieces that we assess. So high socialisation is really important. If you're a really early stage business, we can still assist if it's a really cool business. But for crowdfunding, specifically equity crowdfunding, you really need to have a strong following of consumers investing in the business. And we were talking about this before we started tonight. And that's kind of the secret ingredient to success in these big capital raises. But what we do is we get all those survey responses. Takes like 2 or 3 minutes to fill out the survey. We've got a head of pipeline who ranks them all for a weekly meeting. Then we've got a due diligence meeting every Monday after our team meeting, and we sit there and we go through every single opportunity we've received that week. And unless we're all on the same page in the room, there's about 14 of us, and some of us love deals, some of us hate them, but there's usually a general consensus of deals that we let come through. It's not an investment committee, it's a DD committee. We're not investment professional, not all of us anyway. I don't think anyone is venture capitalists. Well, especially venture capitalists. I didn't say that. But we don't pretend to be. We just think, all right, this fits our criteria properly. Ticks all the boxes and it looks cool. We think we can sell it. And then off that process, we get back to all the no's, we politely decline, and the ones which we say yes to, we take them through formal DD and we get a full data room going. And we spend a lot of time with the businesses before we put them on the platform. We don't just chuck up companies. Like we at Equitise want to keep our standard high. So then we get good investors coming to the platform. They come back because they know that we follow a rigorous process. So yeah, it's quite simple from looking in, but we do a lot behind the scenes to assess these companies.
Yeah, again, it's about high integrity, ensuring the quality of deals that you're putting up is reflective of the kind of brand and reputation that you guys want to create.
Exactly.
Mate, I need to ask this question out of sheer curiosity and perhaps on behalf of the entrepreneurs watching. Let's say we've got a private company, go out, we do a group equity raise, couple $1 million, but on that couple $1 million, minimum parcel is $500, therefore we end up with a couple of hundred shareholders. Does that push us into sort of public unlisted territory?
Yeah, so fortunately there's a silver lining in most things that we do, or most things that we think we've done well, which have been difficult to initially. But in going to New Zealand, we realised that there was a way that we could house investors which we can't do in Australia. And it's actually the old Rothschild model of banking. If you have a nominee in Australia or a nominee company, you can only go up to 20 unit holders in that nominee. Ideally, you could go to as many as you want. So to get around that issue of only being allowed 20 in Australia, we set up a nominee company in New Zealand. In New Zealand, they're very forward-thinking or open-thinking in that market with regulation and the regulator. You can have as many unit holders in a nominee company in New Zealand as you want, and we can run Australian deals using that structure. So we always have an intermediary between the company raising capital and all of the investors below, which then means that you don't get the noise on the shareholder side. So the last thing you want when you're running a business is having all these little investors of $500 when you turn into hopefully the next Shears of Prey or Canva, and you've got all of these fragmented shareholders which all have says in what you do. Through using this structure which we've put together, you don't need to hear from those investors. We act on their behalf. They do still have a voice, which is important to note if you're an investor. You do still have a voice, but your voice goes to Equitise, and then we form a group consensus based on what a 51% vote would be, and then we pass that up as to the portion of equity they hold in the business. So it sounds complicated, but it's really quite easy. It's just a centralized structure in the middle.
It's a beautiful way to do it.
Yeah.
It makes it very streamlined from the company's perspective, which is beautiful.
Yeah, the last thing you want is all that noise and hassle.
Yeah. Wow. Mate, what a model.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what this becomes in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Guys, thank you so much for asking questions tonight. This has been an incredible episode on so many fronts, both personally, professionally, as a career goer, as somebody looking for mentors, if you're looking for mentors, and for those entrepreneurs out there on every level. That's been an exceptional conversation. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Appreciate it,
Thank you,
GQ. GQincers, we look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. My name's Jack Delosa. Look forward to speaking with you soon.